Welcome to Plunkerville Railroad, Chapter 2. I've got a few things together here and an explanation as to what I'm doing. This whole unit is being built in my garage, so it's kind of cold this time of year. So I'm limited to what I can do in the house and come out here. I thought I'd start out just by going over the track that I have accumulated. Now, previously I mentioned that my dad had a lot of track, which includes this and a number of pieces here. Over the last couple of years, online on YouTube, or eBay rather, I've been accumulating Marx and Lionel track. As you can see here, quite a bit of it. I've got a grand total of 107 feet of track, so it should be more than enough to do the layout that I had in mind here. I'm going according to memory as I remember it when my dad had his own layout, which would have been between the years of 1955 and 59. And so I will eventually show a layout map to you people. But right now I have the appropriate dimensions of what I thought might be necessary, and I'll have an outer track and an inner layer tracks. So I think what I'll do is I'll start here. Step number one is, I mentioned last time how my father made this and I put a new roof on it. Well, after looking at it for a while, I decided it was out of scale. The windows were way too large. So I painted the walls from out around the edge and turned it into a two-story building, which makes a little more sense, and the scale works, as you can see with the engine. It works out better. So this is the same house, the station, and all I did was paint the outer edge of the building. So the next item I've got here is a homemade, which I made myself, of a Marx flatbed car. I started out with the base of basically a Marx spare parts junk pile, and I cut a small piece of wood and glued it with carpenter glue, which I have found is a fantastic glue, which is about as good as an epoxy, but it takes a long time for it to dry. But as you can see, it's quite solid. So what I did was here, I took that Marx base and I put some spare wheels on it, repaired them. And these are Lionel and these are an old set of Marx. And what I did was, in this case, there weren't any tab couplers on it, so I made these couplers up based on, over here I've got the name of the site. It's called FedEx, or FAUX Toys, Hints and Tips, a site which has been dormant since, as far as I can tell, 2008. But he gives a lot of hints and tips and literature which is posted there on how to revive any Marx cars. And these couplers, as you can see, he designed, and they're quite amazing. What they are, in my case, I used paper clips, large paper clips, and bent them according to the specifications as this gentleman had mentioned. So they worked out very nicely. When you stretch out the paper clip, you get a total of 6 inches. And I went for the center and bent it accordingly. All the dimensions and everything are at this site. So if you want to go to it, I strongly advise it. The man has done a lot of hard work reviving old Marx 6-inch tin trains. So that'll give you an idea what I built here. What this is a McDonald's Happy Meals car, which my boys got years ago, and it was kicking around the garage of the house. And I decided to utilize it since it was off scale with the rest of the cars I've got, I decided I would put it on this flatbed to make it usable. It'll be moving around the track. And I had a spare truck, which it was of no use because of the very short wheels on it. They don't grab the track very good. I believe it's came originally from a do-it-yourself assembly kit that you build like an airplane. And I decided not to use these and just use them as a dummy on here. So that's the completed car, as you can see. I call it the Fiat 600 because that's the closest thing online that I could identify it with. So that's my little flatbed Fiat 600. And well, you've seen my logo here. This train is a Canadian Pacific totally tin stamped train, which they manufactured between the years 1936 and 1952. After 52, they went strictly with either plastic or remaining die-cast cars such as the 999. Okay, from there we go to this truck. It's a Winross truck made in Rochester, New York, sometime in the 1980s or 1950s. This is another leftover toy that my boys had that was around the house. But I thought it was appropriate to leave the trailer as it is. But the tractor was too modern for me, so I refaced it to appear as a 1930s, 40s tractor with pontoon fenders and appropriate paint job, and the grill work, which you would see back in those days, pre-World War II era or early 50s. So this has been refaced to look like a truck from the 1930s to 1950s era. And this, well, this is an afterthought. It's out of scale. I'm not sure that I'll use it. But I've always been a big fan of the Amos and Andy television show. And I thought I'd make a little Mystic Knights of the Sea Hall. But it's under scale. I might make a larger one later on. But it basically, what is it? It's a pear can I cut in half. Canned pears. And I glued it to this board. And I made, as you can see, a front entrance with a window and a rear window in the back. It's just simulating what possibly an organization like Lions or the Mystic Knights of the Sea might use as a hall during that period of time. You can see the overhead light and so on. But like I said, it's out of scale. I'm not sure that I will use it. I showed you the track. Oh, here, in regards to the track, amongst all my dad's track, I found these two odd ones. They are very old. If anybody watching the video could inform me just how old they are, I believe they're 1920s or before track because of the way they're constructed. This one especially. This one may be in the 20s or 30s, but this one is quite an old timer. You can see the way it's structured differently. This may go back as far as World War I. Not sure. Haven't been able to find any information on it. But this is an old timer, this curved track. Okay. I got my Mystic Knights there. I think next video I'm going to do a special on my, I had an old Lionel tank, water tank that's used along the track run with a spout that would come down and refill the engine with water. It was badly damaged. It was my dad's tank. It had been crushed. So I spent some time gluing it together with super glue, and it still wasn't strong enough. So what I did, as I mentioned here, I put several layers of carpenter's glue on the inside, and I was amazed how it stiffened it up. It basically was a reinforcement glaze, and this, as you can see, the way this glue is, it's very similar to an epoxy. So anyway, that tank worked out very nicely. So I I took apart my dad's train tender, which was in a poor condition, and it had a whistle in it. Now the tender was in such bad condition, I decided to revive the whistle if I could. I took it apart, cleaned it, and found that it worked very nicely after lubricating it. But I wasn't going to put it back in the tender, so I decided to put it in the water tank. Upon putting the lid on the water tank, it muffled it too much. So I drilled a lot of holes in the bottom, and it was still too muffled. So I decided to make a screen type of roof and mounted that whistle inside there. And I was going to connect it to that button, a whistle button. So every time I wanted to hear the whistle, I could press on that button. And anyway, it worked very nicely. What I've been doing, powering my engine, testing the motors, I use the power from this old 12 volt automobile battery charger, which I suspect is 50 years old or better. I bought that secondhand at a flea market. It's been around a long time. I have a newer one, but I prefer using this one. It's an old timer that I like. So it's flexible enough so that I can test the engines and anything I need to do. Test all these light bulbs. Oh, here's another item. Earlier I showed you I put a light in here. Well, this is basically, I took an old automobile. I've got a lot of old car parts around here, and these are side marker lights on a 1970s, 80s automobile. And I took the lamps and I put them on here with epoxy, and I incorporated inside there. But you can see a lot of automobile parts, because of the fact that they were 12 volts, will function for on a train set, because the voltages range between as low as 6 on up to 24 volts. Of course, the particular transformer I would light these up would be in the 12 to 14 volt range. But as you can see there, these are what I would call more modern bulbs that came from the 70s and 80s, and these go back to the 1940s and 50s. Whether I use them or not, I don't know, but those are 6 volt and these are 12. It's just leftover parts from vintage automobiles that I've had in the past. So I guess that's basically it. I will be going over some of my revamped tin engines, as this one. They are all of this age, pre-war or just immediate post-war era. I prefer them in that time zone. My father's engines were as new as 1957, 58, but there's nothing newer than that. Everything is pre-1958. His engines as well as my own. So I want to thank you for checking out our video, and I hope you'll be happy with what I've covered on the Marx line, and please return if you wish to do so. Thank you.